All right, guys, today we're talking about the big key defensive concepts. First, why talk about defense? The good thing about defense is that anyone can learn how to play it. And really, it's not that hard, I think, relative to the other phases of the game. Whether it's 1v1 defense or a team learning how to defend as a unit, anyone can learn to do it. And you can get good at it fairly quickly. If we're talking about developing technical ability, that's important when you're trying to possess the ball and stuff. That takes a lot of time to gain the coordination and the skill necessary. But defense is something you can learn pretty quick in one season, and you can really affect the game with it. You can often control the other teams when they have the ball. And I feel it's often a relief to myself and players knowing that defensively we have a plan, we have set things that we know we're going to do, and that kind of opens things up offensively when we get the transitions, when we get the ball, to be creative, to kind of do what we want, because we know in our back pocket our defensive strategy is strong. All right, so let's take a look. What are the key concepts we're going to talk about today? First, it's defending man-on-man in a 1v1, the strategy and technique. Then recovering after a transition. Then maintaining horizontal compactness across the field. Obviously, we want to be vertically and horizontal compact, but often teams mess up on the horizontal part. Pressuring the ball with diagonal lines. And I have another video that's much more detailed about pressing the ball in the opponent's half when their back four are trying to keep it, or their keeper is trying to make passes with them. And that there's a lot of ways to do it, and you really have to be organized. This video is more focused on defending in your half and just concepts that can be applied to any sort of situation. Finally, we're talking about the back line close to the goal. What are the rules on the back line? Why is it important to be +1? And when do we need to go from guarding a zone, guarding a gap, to guarding a man? All right, we'll start off with talking about 1v1s. Now, this is going to be difficult to do in a video. This is something that really you just got to learn in practice by trying it, seeing other people that are good at it, and having a coach give you feedback on it. So I'll just try my best in this video, and we'll try to move through it quickly. First off, there's 1v1s and there's 50-50s, and they are not the same. 1v1 is what I'm going to call the situation when your opponent has the ball. It's at his foot, he has possession, he's comfortable on the ball. Maybe he's dribbling towards you at full speed, maybe he's just taking a first touch towards you without a lot of speed, or maybe his back to you, but he has the ball. Now 50-50 is different. The pass is traveling, the ball is traveling in the air, or the pass is traveling to space between players on both teams. That's a 50-50. And why is it so different in the strategy? Because in 50-50, you go in hard. You go beast mode, you just try to win the ball. You use every ounce of tenacity and athleticism that you have, and you try to win that encounter and win the ball. Win the ball in the air, on the ground, doesn't matter. But it shifts. When they cleanly have possession, when the ball is at the guy's foot, we dial back that aggression, because if you go in that aggressively when they have the ball, you're going to get beat, and it's a bad, bad risk with little reward. See, the overall idea is that defending 1v1 is not like a duel. You're not trying to steal the ball at all cost every situation. It's much more important to protect the space behind you and maybe to one side of the field where you don't want them to go. Ideally, you want them to go away from our goal. We push them away, usually towards the sideline in most all situations. And then sometimes in their half, it's okay to push them across their own goal because that's dangerous for them. So that's the strategy. It's going from super aggressive on 50-50s to being patient and really only trying to steal the ball if they put their head down and say, I'm going to try to beat you on the dribble. As in, if you go up to defend a 50-50 and the guy turns around and passes it backwards towards his own goal, that's amazing. You did your job. That's the whole point. If they keep passing backwards, it's safer for us. They're moving away from our goal, and it's much easier for one of your teammates to run onto a bad pass than it is for you to steal the ball, especially if the guy's got skill on the dribble. Often at the younger ages, you could be super aggressive and just charge in and win 50-50s. But when the players start getting better technically on the ball, they're just going to beat you every time. So what is the technique? Well, this is the saying I use. I say fast, slow, sideways, low. And we can kind of see some pictures of it below start to develop. Okay, first part, fast, slow. Obviously, you want to close the space down between you and the person with the ball as quickly as you can. So you just try to run into that. But what is slow, you have to break down. The number one mistake most people make in a 50-50 is they run at the guy and they don't start chopping their feet, getting low and slowing down with enough space between them and the ball. You want to give them a little buffer, a little bit of space. You're not trying to go from full speed to stopping right on the guy's foot. You want to leave about, maybe a yard, maybe just 2 feet, but you want to break down in that space and then start working your feet, chopping your feet, jockeying, and closing the remaining space down with little steps. We say sideways, low, and you can start to see that in the pictures below. Rather than defending with your shoulders square, you want to be side on to the ball, almost like you're riding a skateboard. We can see it here from the first picture. The girl defending the other, I would say she's not quite fully side on. She's kind of at a 45-degree angle. I'd prefer her to put her, right foot back, so she is more perpendicular to the ball. This situation, she's about to get megged here maybe, but she is mostly sideways and she is low. When you defend sideways, you can step forward, but more importantly, back very quickly. When you defend with your shoulders square on your opponent, you can go left, right very quickly, but if they put the ball around you, you're very slow to go back. And the most important thing is that we're defending the space behind. So when you are fast, slow, sideways, low, what does it allow you to do? It takes away their passing options because you're close and you're tight on them, but it lets you win the ball. Here's maybe the most important thing, boys. Win the ball with your body, not your legs. You're not looking to stab, poke, kick at the ball as they're dribbling so it deflects off them, goes somewhere else. We're not into that. Why? Because you can't control what happens if you're just kicking the ball. Sometimes you can kick it, it goes off of them, you, them, and then it touches to the space behind you and the guy's running through you as your momentum is going forward. No, we're trying to be patient. We're trying to win the ball with our body. And how do you do that? And apologies that this is difficult to describe rather than show someone with a live demonstration. You're trying to cut the guy off. A good defender is a bad driver. We're trying to cut through the space between the ball and the offensive player with our body. All right, I got a video. Let's watch. Boom, there it is. Not perfect at the end, but let's see. He's already closes the space. He's sideways. He's low. Look at the feet. His feet are moving very, very quickly. He's on his toes. Look at it. Chop, step, little 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 step. It lets him stay close. Notice how patient he is. He's not stabbing here. He's waiting, he's waiting, he's waiting. Then, when the offensive player takes the big positive dribble, that's when the defender makes his move. He starts to go back, and watch how he puts his body between the ball and the offensive player. Right here, boom, bumps him and cuts him off, right? A little bit of a 50-50 at the end, but he's done his job here. He's slid through at the very end. It's a quick move from the offensive guy. Obviously, these are pro players. They're good. But notice, he bumps him, he fights in with the shoulder, and he's able to shield the ball. Now, boom, now it's my ball. And that's how it's done at the highest level. I have some diagrams here, some quick ones. So if the red guy is defending the black player, notice how we're sideways on with our feet and our shoulders are almost off his shoulder. You don't want your shoulder to be right down the middle of the guy, because if he dribbles around to the backside, he'll just slide around the backside and beat you. In this diagram, if the player on the ball wanted to dribble to his left, he'd have to cover a lot of distance to get around. So here we are. Now it's a static picture, but obviously the player with the red feet, he'd be moving those feet, bent low, chopping, so he can move back very quickly. And once the offensive guy tries to explode into the space, that's when we try to cut them off. And I drew it like this to show that his body is not all the way there yet, but the first thing that can cut through the space is your hand. And then your body has to follow through it. Finally, last topic on this is a shielded ball. Sometimes the player has his back towards your goal and he's shielding the ball with your body. The key in this situation, and I don't have any videos of this, so I'm just going to describe it and we're going to move on. The key is to not lean on the guy. Do not put your weight on the guy trying to fight for that ball. Why is this? If you lean on the guy, if your chest is touching his back and he's any sort of good, this isn't even hard to do. This is the easiest way to beat someone on the ball. He's just going to spin. He's going to let you pick a side and he's going to spin around the other side, back heel it, drag it, or scoop it. So in this situation, if you can ever have a shielded ball, you want to stay touch tight to the guy so you're so close you can touch him, but you want to be patient, not trying to stab at the ball if he's shielded off the space. He's not getting through you. He's not going to be able to pass forward if he's facing towards his own goal. So you want to be as tight as you can, but very, very, very patient. Then if he does a full 180 turn and starts to dribble, he'll present you the ball and you can just easily cut through and take it right then. So that requires the most patience in that situation and not leaning on the player. Okay, so there's 1v1s. Hopefully that helped. See the video one more time. Boom, sideways. Patient. Makes the move, fights through, cuts him off with the body. Beautiful. Okay, next. This one is so simple, but so important. Recovery. What do you do after a transition? Your team has the ball and you lose the ball. Now, if you lose the ball and it's right next to you, try to win it back. This is called counter pressure. Even if you weren't the guy dribbling or passing, if you just have players on your team close to the ball near a transition, that's the time when you jump in and you can try to maybe 2v1 the guy and take the ball back. But we're saying, what about everyone else on the field? What if you're on the wide side of the field and your team loses the ball, goes from offense, defense? What do? It's simple. You run back. You go back. So here we're focusing on how far back, and I have the simple picture here. You want to get behind the line of the ball. And in this picture, notice number 8, he's done that. Number 6 has not. You don't want to get even with the line of the ball because then you can't provide any cover in pressure cover balance. If no one is pressuring the ball, then you really have to sprint and try to get goal side before you can even apply pressure. But if you recover a little bit on the line of the ball, you're not offering really any help. You have to go a little bit behind the line of the ball. The key to doing this is not how fast, but when. As soon as a transition occurs, if you can start working back, not a sprint, just a light jog. If you can start working back towards your own goal, that's beautiful. If everyone does that, your team is in good shape. Now, if the ball is near you, you might have to hustle a little bit more. But for most players, and you can just see this at the pro level, as soon as a transition occurs, instantly they're working backwards, they're moving backwards. And here, it's like I say, you have an option. Would you rather lightly jog back early, get behind the ball, put your back to your own goal and rest so you can have vision on the field, or pout after a transition because you or someone else messed up, stand there, walk, and then when the ball is played to your guy, then you have to sprint fast as you can to try to get goal side, try to get around him. Clearly, if you're worried about maintaining a high level of energy, if you're worried about your gas tank, your stamina meter, thinking of it's like a video game, yeah, let's lightly jog early, get into position, and then stand with our back to the goal. So it's all about making this happen early. Let's take a look. All right, red team. Red team has the ball. That's us. We're about to get an offensive opportunity here. I don't know. We try something. Diagonal through ball. We try to make it. It doesn't work. The timing was not there. a transition has occurred, and maybe the team is playing decently off of transition. Boom. They make that pass there. The guy gets the turn. Okay. So let's look here, and let's mark the line of the ball that we've established. So basically, there it is. There's the line of the ball. So at this point, we have 3 players, really 4 if you include number 6, that have not recovered behind the line of the ball. So if our number 9, number 7, number 11 here, if they can start working back behind this line on the ball, maybe 10 would apply the pressure. Maybe our winger stays up, kind of does the striker's job, and the striker, maybe he works back, gets behind the line of the ball, behind the line of the ball, behind the line of the ball. If you're in this situation, now you've put numbers behind the ball. The spaces for them to play the ball into have decreased. You're very likely to win it back on a bad pass. You're very likely to have them play too far a ball. And if they go backwards, we're giving them free passes backwards. That's okay because they're passing away from our goal. And now we can get organized and step up and press the ball as the ball travels backwards on the pass, and now make them uncomfortable and maybe hit a bad pass that we can step onto and get a great transition. None of this is possible if we don't recover past the line of the ball. Say you're on a back 4 and the ball is just played into space behind you. Simple ball here, boom. Inside out run, maybe they time it right. Okay, what is the line of the ball? The line of the ball is here, and this guy's going to be heading towards goal. So that line will be moving relatively quickly. In this situation, anyone and everyone, all the closest players, they have to bust it to try to get behind the line of the ball. So maybe this guy, he goes fast as he can diagonally. Number 2 recovers also back, maybe diagonally, trying to give cover to number 5. And these players they don't stand and wait on the top of the 18 to try to pick out a pass going up there. No, you have to recover behind the line of the ball. And now we're set up. And this would be very difficult for this ball here because number 10's not waiting. He's going to be driving towards the corner and crossing, or driving towards the near post for a shot. So this is a full speed recovery here. But most transitions, it doesn't require full speed. It just requires early action, a light jog, working it back. If you have players doing their job 1v1, slowing the offense down, making the offense pass horizontal or better backwards, it gives time for the other players to comfortably recover behind the line of the ball, and then there is no transition. Things are safer. Okay, very simple there. All right, next, let's speed it up. Horizontal compactness, especially weak side players. What are we talking about here? We're talking about taking away the middle of the field and giving them, if you have to choose between 2 options, giving them passes towards the sidelines, especially back towards their own goal. And here we see 2 versions of it. Notice in the top picture, number 3, number 6, they're not connected to the players on the side of the ball, right? Now this happens all the time. Number 3, in the top picture, he thinks I have to guard the winger here. I'm guarding number 11. Like, no, we don't need you to do that. What we need you to do is drop to the middle, as we see here in the bottom picture. We need him to connect to the center back. We need him to take away passing gaps in the middle and offer cover for number 4. The DCM, we don't need him chilling out in the half space. Instead, we need him in the middle, connected on a diagonal line to any other midfielder. Now here, we've completely taken the ball to feet to their central player, their striker 9 away. It's a dangerous pass. If they try to hit that, one of our guys is probably running onto the ball. We're allowing them to hit passes backwards. Now, some players might say, well, why, if I leave 11 alone, they're just going to hit it to him. What kind of ball would they have to hit to get to number 11 here? Think about it. It's got to be a big, big ball in the air. That's a hard ball to hit. That's a hard ball to take a first touch on. And if they do hit that, our whole team has time to shift back over. It's very difficult for them to put a perfect ball inside the 18, drop it right behind the shoulder of the outside back, and then number 11 has to take a perfect first touch, full speed ball in the air. Just not going to happen. Even at the pro level, this is hard. So we take away the middle away. We give them long switches of play if they want, because it's probably not going to work. And even if it does, it is an accurate pass, we have time to shift back over there. But if we let them have passes in the middle and play through us in the middle, they will get shots on goal. So if you are if you are a outside back, if you are a winger, this is especially important for you. I have two situations here. Look at the top of the screen, right? We're kind of pressuring them. The winger here, does he guard the outside back too? No, he shifts in. He's almost like a center mid now. He's guarding the DCM. He needs to take away the middle of the field and will achieve a nice diagonal line there. Okay, and this is the one we just covered at the bottom of the field. Okay, 2 is pressuring the ball. These guys are the cover, the center backs. They're doing their job here. Number 3, does he need to guard the winger? Nah, he needs to come in the middle and connect. So we have a 2v1 on the striker. So we've taken that away. Be careful in this shifting, especially on the back line. Sometimes I see situations where the center back is almost behind a pressuring outside back, and this guy has to shift over. The outside back, as an outside back, you never want to go farther than kind of the midway point of the goal. This should never happen. Your team has over-shifted, and what you should do is tell the center back, say, hey, we've over-shifted. And they go, oh, yeah. And as they start working back, then you can recover too, so we can't get played completely around on the weak side. Okay. What next? Yes, diagonal defensive lines. Now, I talked about this in more detail in my pressure video, so go check that out. But in general, when we're talking about the lines of our defensive formations, and the whole purpose of having your formation is your defensive job, where offense, just attack the space. There aren't really positions. They're just attacking space creatively. You want to make sure that if you're on a defensive line, that you're not just flat, like we see here in this top picture. Here's this 4-4-2 in a mid block, and all of the lines are just flat. Number 9's pressuring the ball. Number 10 is flat with them, and the midfield line is flat. What we want is something more like this. Notice 10 has dropped back. Notice the midfielders have dropped back. The guys on the side of the ball, you can play up. Notice 11, he's aggressively positioning, basically taking the pass to 3 away. It's these other guys, our midfielders, 8, 6, and 7 here, and the other striker, 10. They have to drop back to achieve these diagonal lines. It makes it very, very difficult for someone to play through if it's a diagonal line, and almost offers them to try to hit a pass in front of the diagonal line, like we're giving him the pass to 5, the center back 5 here. But number 10, if he knows it's not going to be played behind him, he can sometimes read this pass, anticipate it, especially if it's not hit firmly, and he can run on and he can steal the pass center back to center back. If they tried to go all the way to number 2 here, he could compete from that ball as well. It's just a difficult pass to hit. So we're really looking to achieve these diagonal lines, but take a look on the back line. Obviously, we can't do this now, always because we're trying to maintain the offsides line. But in our attacking line, in our midfield lines, we want to be diagonal. Now, I'll show you real quick why offering this pass through the diagonal line is a trap, is good for the defense. Here we go to the 4v2 rondo, and we have the 2 blue defensive players. If they stay flat, it is not hard, even if there's not a lot of space between them, for someone to put the ball straight through them, the through ball, the third line pass, right? Here we're giving them all the options to play around, and if they're flat, boom. It's very easy to judge the weight of this pass and just blast it right through. Now, what could they do? Instead of that, they could get diagonal. So one of them goes to pressure the ball. He kind of cuts the pass to number 4, and rather than stay flat, the other player here, number 11, he drops back, creates this diagonal. Whoops. Creates this diagonal line. Drop better than that. So there we go. Now take a look here. Now the guy on the ball, he has far less options. We've cut his pass to number 4, right, by being side on in our 1v1 defense. He kind of has 2 passes. He can just hit this pass to feet in front of the diagonal line, the number 10. This is not a difficult pass for our player here to, boom, anticipate and intercept it, all right? And if he tries to go down the middle, this is a difficult ball to hit. Go ahead, position a few of your friends out one day in possession and just take a look at how this looks intimidating and different. This pass down the middle is now tough because you have 2 players that can compete from the ball. If he tries to split them, the first guy can step on it here, the next guy can step on it here. So it's tough to get the weight of this pass right, and if you just hit the ball as hard as you can, number 11 might not be able to even control the first touch after the through ball. So that's why presenting the diagonal line is a trap. And good teams will try to do this, especially you run a 2-striker formation, 4-4-2, 3-5-2, presenting that diagonal line to the center backs and daring them to try to pass through it is a great trap to set that lets you just nick an easy ball and boom, get a great transition right to the goal when they're not set up for it. All right, let's talk about the back line. Now, I don't call the players on my back line the defenders. They're the backs. I got 2 center backs, sometimes 3, and 2 outside backs. Why not call them defenders? Because everyone on the team defends. Everyone has to understand the concepts of the back line. Because at any point in the game, you might find yourself on the back line. And I'm not saying your coach switches you with positions to outside back. I'm saying if you're a midfielder, if you're a winger, sometimes you recover all the way to the back line. Watch pro soccer. Sometimes when a team has, even if you're trying to press the ball, if the other team beats your press, gets close to your goal, but then slows down and gives you time to come back, sometimes you have 5, 6, 7 players on that back line. Okay, so what are the key ideas here? Number 1 is always having 1 extra guy than offensive players, being +1. So if we think about it, if they're running like a 4-4-2 and they have 2 strikers that are usually playing high, we always need 3 guys to be back. Which means, if you're running a standard back 4, that one of your outside backs can come up the field very aggressively and pressure the ball probably on the ball side outside mid. As long as the other weak side outside back stays connected, we have a 3v2 and we're +1 in the back. Against 3 striker formations, we need all 4 guys there. And sometimes in those formations with 1 central striker, it shows that your outside backs really have the freedom to move up and pressure whoever they want as long as our center backs maintain a 2v1 versus 1 central striker. You always want this +1 because it allows for the cover of pressure cover balance. If they can get ball to feet to a top offensive player, doesn't matter. We already have the cover. They can't hit us with an easy 2v1 in these situations, right? If we're caught 2v2 on the back line, if we're caught 3v3 on the back line, well, now we have problems because if they can get one of the defenders to bite, one of the backs to bite, play the ball to space, we just got 2v1'd. So we're trying to take out that option. The free player is always a free player of cover, so it's very difficult to play through. So often, boys, it's a counting game. You just got to look around and count. For example, you're an outside back, right? You look over, and there's already 3 offensive players playing high, playing up in the gaps. Now's the time. You better make sure you're back and connected too. So we have 4, they have 3, and we're +1. All right, let's talk about your body positioning. I say side on facing the ball, and I have a picture of it here. where you can see the back players, they're side on. They're not square. This allows them to step back very quickly. And in general, you always want to face the side of the ball. Now, right here, it's interesting because this guy right here, he's not facing the ball, right? And I would say this is probably incorrect for him, especially because the guy on the ball, I don't know if he has the angle to hit the pass to the alley, right? But it's hard to see because we can't see the pitch here. But that's generally the rule, is you want to face the ball. Why is that? What are you doing? You're not so much guarding a man as you are guarding a gap. I tried to show it here in this crude drawing with the yellow, black, and blue gap. Number 2, in this picture, he's pressuring the ball. What are the other players behind doing? Well, the other center back 5, he's guarding the gap behind the center back. Number 4 is guarding the gap, the black lines here, and number 3 is guarding the blue lines here. The gap on the left side is one that they're not exactly going to be able to play the ball through, maybe aerial ball over, but it's a gap you really don't have to worry about. So that's why you're side on, so you can guard that gap, squeeze it, and maybe step through and try to intercept through balls into those gaps. Now, shape of the back line, I've heard some people say like a check mark sometimes. I feel this isn't a big deal as long as there's some sort of concept of cover. For example, in this picture here, if number 5, can he step? Can he play kind of on a diagonal? That's fine. I feel as long as 3 and 4 have they've maintained on the back line. So I feel there's options here. There's no right or wrong way to do it for all situations, but you always want to have +1 because you always need cover. That's a universal concept that cannot go away. All right, next, closing gaps and who sets the offensive or who sets the offsides line. Let's go into here. Let's just throw up one of these. Here's the one we talked about being compact. Okay, in this situation here, all right, number 2 has stepped up to pressure the ball. Which of our back players sets the offside line for the others to follow? And the answer here is it's 5. This guy, the near side center back. And the simple reason why is because he can't see the players behind them. If number 4 was setting the offsides line, 5 has to face the ball. So he can't see the ball and the other center back. So you can't do something like one center back, I'm always the guy that sets the line. No. It's whoever cannot see the other guys, and usually that's the near side center back. So 5 positions. Now 4, he can, in his peripheral vision, watch 5, keep the offsides line, and see the ball at the same time. What's bad is when players try to go further back, set another offsides line. Now 5 doesn't know the line has shifted. So people that he think runs that will be offsides are no longer offsides. All right, let's move around. Let's say maybe the ball is played into here. And so one of our guys, maybe this center back goes to pressure him. Now, who sets the offsides line? It's number 4 because the outside backs can see him, right? So they're all side on facing the ball in this situation. And here's another thing. Notice, if number 5 steps up to pressure the ball, what happens in our back line? We left a gap. And good teams, they will try to attack that space. Especially they'll put the ball in a 2v2, maybe a through ball and a third man run. It's your job as a back unit, and this is true on any defensive line, is when someone steps out of the line to pressure, they're going to leave a hole. You have to shift in all the players to close the hole. And now we have 2 even gaps. We're giving him more space on the sideline, and we're closing the gaps in the middle. Now, we're not saying you run to where he was. No, you've just opened up a bigger gap on the right side of the field. It's a little bit of shifting. Outside back will shift a little bit. Center back will shift a little bit. Other outside back will shift a little bit. This has to happen instantly, all at the same time. And then we've covered it up, and he, boom, gives another pass. Another one steps for pressure over. We shift back in. Maybe 2 shifts over and 5 shifts over here. There's a lot of ways to do it. Now, sometimes other players are going to have to get on this back line. And you have to know in your basically system, your formation, I feel often it's good to know who's the first guy that steps onto the back line other than the backs, the 4 backs, or maybe 3 backs if you're running 3 center backs. Often it's a defensive center mid. In a 3-striker formation, if we're talking 4-2-3-1 or 4-3-3, it's the DCM's job. If we're talking 4-4-2, it's usually an outside mid's job to come behind the outside back all the way to the back line. And in the 3-5-2 or 3-4-3, it's the wing back's job. And everyone knows this one. They come back on the back line and make it a back 4. So what do I mean here? Say, boom, here. Winger has the ball. 3 is stepped up. Now, how many offensive players are on the back line? 2. Number 7, number 9. And so we're 3v2, we're good. But what if another player makes an offensive run? Now it's 3v3, this is no good. So if we're in a 4-3-3 situation, the DCM, he has to have awareness here, and he has to fall into the back line as well, and now we're 4v3, and now we're safe. Now we can have pressure cover balance, not get exposed on a 2v1. Often, what causes these gaps is, through balls. So say, boom, this ball is played here, and the striker runs onto it, and our other center back has to, boom, shift over to cover the space behind, and maybe these guys are switched up. This center back has to shift over, okay? And maybe this is happening fast, so a lot of shifting is occurring. Boom, boom, right? And maybe our outside back, maybe he shifts a lot too. Okay, we've really shifted a lot here. There is now space behind us on the right side of the field. So in these situations, when the ball is pulled through, this is the best moment for I need to fill in a DCM. Boom, he goes where the outside back is, and now we have 4 on the line. It's basically covered. Maybe sometimes it would be quicker for the DCM, boom, to go next to the center back, and the outside back can just shift in a little bit. These rules, you'll have to just figure them out as you go, improvise. They're pretty easy to apply, shifting in. Oh, he's coming in, so I'm going to shift back out horizontally. And here I'm doing it with the DCM, but often it can be something like an outside mid as the backs shift over. Maybe someone like this winger here. We see number 7, boom, he comes back and basically plays in the spot the outside back left as the outside back had to shift over. So that's the back line, maintaining the +1, being side on, guarding the gap, looking to close the gap when someone steps up, being aware of who sets the offside line and who are players that often fill in. And if you're playing, pretty much everyone, even the striker, it's possible, can sometimes fill in on the back line. Final point I have to make is, I said we're guarding gaps before. It's kind of like guarding a space, a zonal space. When do you shift to just straight up guarding a man? And the answer is a crossing situation. So a very easy, obvious one of these would be a set piece, a corner. We know the cross is about to come, duh. But sometimes in the game, in open play, if the ball just is played into the corner space, people know it's about to be whipped in front of the goal. And sometimes you just know teams like to play big ball, big diagonal ball into the space, and you can, see the player, read his body posture, his movement to the ball, his eyes. Is he just going to hit a big 40-yard ball and try to put it into the 6-yard box? It's not super effective, but if you switch off, it can be. So in these situations, if you're on the back line, you have to look around like a corner and not just play your space. You have to find the guys around you. We're going from a zone defense to a man defense in this very quick situation. And just like on a corner, that means you have to be touch tight on the guy, and you got to put your shoulder on his chest. I have 2 pictures of it here. I think these are actual just corners, but here we see, can't tell that is 21. He's guarding Costa back in his Chelsea days. And notice, how close is he? Very close. 21, the defensive player, the center of his chest is basically touching Costa's shoulder. This way, you can feel where the guy is while your eyes watch the ball. You can do two things at once. If you don't, it's very difficult to look at the guy and the ball. So we see the guy with our body by maintaining a connection on him, and we see the ball just by looking at it. We also see it down here in this other picture. I know it's super grainy. I like this one because he's even tighter. And I like this little trick, putting your back arm behind the guy, right? Keeping it short, like connecting your elbow to your own body, right? So here, his arm, I feel, is extended too much. This guy could flop, get some sort of terrible call penalty. So instead of that, maybe keep your arm short like this. I know it's difficult to see, but behind the guy. So then if he tries to move around you to his left, if he tries to spin, he runs into your arm. He can't run through you. You've maintained a connection. So the difficulty of doing this in live play is, come over here. Let's take a look. Boop, 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 boop. Go back. Where are we? Shirt recovery. Okay. The ball is played in. Let's see. Say, here's the situation. We got an outside back. They have a winger over here. Something like this. Okay, let's check out number 2, outside back. He'll be our focus guy right here. So if the ball is played, he's played to the winger. He makes a good 1v1 move. He gets in the corner, but he's not really going to be able to get to the near post. We have to identify that a crossing situation is about to occur. Okay, so maybe 2, this is the moment when it's in the corner. Ooh, a cross is about to happen. Rather than give cover to number 5, you need to look around. You need to find the player. There he is, and boom, get to where you can maintain a connection on him. Boom, your goal side, your chest is in his shoulder, now you're touching him, right? So as the play developed, maybe you were shifting in as the outside back here, trying to stay connected to number 5, but then as you realize, it's not coming down the middle, they're about to lift it in the air, cross it, I need to look around, boom, maintain this connection, boom, maintain this connection here. So you have to shift and treat it like a corner, and obviously the difficulty here is that it's happening really fast. It's happening in open play. All right, so those are my big defensive concepts. Anyone can learn to play defense. If your team does all of these things, that's just a good team. You can struggle possessing the ball, not even have that much offensive sophistication, and if you defend in these things, teams can't do anything against you. Most teams, I've seen at a high school level, certainly below that, low level of college, they lack sophistication on offense. They treat everything as a 1v1. If you try to 1v1 against a defense set up like this, it's just not going to work. And then the games are very, very close. And then when the games are close, anything can happen. Or maybe you are a good team, offensive team, right? Well, guess what? Sometimes you're going to have a bad first half or stretch of the game. If you know what you're doing defensively, you can rely on that. The score will be maintained, and then you'll open it up on them later. There's no such thing in soccer as a team that, we're an offensive team, not a defensive team. We're just going to outscore our opponent. We score a lot. We're going to score 5 or 6 a game. They get 3 or 4. That's okay. That doesn't exist. That kind of exists in basketball, run and gun, maybe football to a degree, kind of, but no, in soccer, no, that it doesn't exist. Every team has to play the best defense possible. Right? It's not an option of style of play. But the good news is it's not that hard to do, and if everyone's on the same page and uses team tactics to win easy balls, to make the game so much easier for you and make your opponent's job harder, ain't nobody going to score on you, and then you're going to win any game